All right. Good day, Ma. What are your name and your occupation?
Uh, Good day. Good to meet you. My name is Helen Bako. I'm a social worker. I work with the County of Los Angeles, but I'm also the president of this organization, NWAVE.
All right. What is NWAVE and what does it stand for?
NWAVE, it's called Nigerian Women. It stands for Nigerian Women Against Violence. It is an organization that speaks up against violence, and it's an organization that is trying to forge peace. It started in Nigeria, and obviously the focus is Nigeria, but it's not limited to Nigeria, but also, forging peace in other African countries. So that's what NWAVE does.
So, what do you and the workers at NWAVE do?
Well, like I mentioned, NWAVE is an organization that started as a result of violence that took place in Nigeria in 2010. In one night, over 300 women and children were massacred by a militant Islamic group. And it was at that point that I felt that women should be motivated to speak up against the violence that is perpetrated mainly really against women, and children. So the goal of NWAVE is to speak up, against violence, and is also to reach out, to victims that have been affected by those violence.
So, where is NWAVE located?
NWAVE is, the headquarters is in Nigeria. However, NWAVE is a registered nonprofit organization in Nigeria, but here in the United States, there is a nonprofit organization called Universal Dorcas Ministry that is working hand in hand with NWAVE. It is actually a program under this ministry, Universal Dorcas Ministry. But NWAVE headquarters is located in Abuja in Nigeria.
All right. You've told us how NWAVE got started. So, what are the different forms of violence against women and children in Africa?
Oh, there's a lot of different violence that is perpetrated against women and children in Africa. We have the religious violence that, the Islamic militant group, that we know of now, Boko Haram, that targets mainly women and children. They kidnap them and turn them into these slave. They use them, as slaves, as wives. They sell them off, as wives. We also have domestic violence, where in the home a husband becomes very abusive, to his wife. And we also have, the rape that takes place, very prevalent in the society against women, and against children. And we also have all this issue of female mutilation, where women are, in some traditions, they try to, what do you call it? For men is, we have to stop here. For men, it is like, it's not vaccination. Circumcision, exactly, circumcision. Female genital mutilation that goes on, in this society. And sometimes there's also the issue of the tribal marks that you see in the northern part of the country, Nigeria. You see a lot of these tribal marks that, they have on women and children. So those are the, various forms of violence that is perpetrated against women and children.
So may we know what are the major causes of this violence? What causes it?
Well, I believe part of why we have this violence, there is this aspect of religion, this particular group in northern Nigeria that have really been bombarding and attacking and, kidnapping, children and women. they do that in the name of religion. They believe that Boko Haram believes that the only form of religion that is right is this strict, Islamic religion. So religion is part of it. And the other thing I think is tradition. Within the African society, almost every African society, there is this preference of the male figure than the female, figure. When a child is born, even before a child is born, there is preference that is given to a male child. Think about it. In our society, if a woman doesn't give birth to a male child, she is sometimes, sent away from, or there's a divorce that often takes place because she doesn't give birth to a male child. And so when a female child is born, the female is often abused, is looked at as a second-class citizen within a society. When men get married to women, they think, they are properties, and some of them, are being abused. And then there is this, the female genital mutilation tradition. They believe that in some, tribal groups, they believe that if a girl is circumcised, she will not go out and mess around with other men. So tradition, religion, and just the way society looks at women, is the main cause of that. And then there's this issue with rape. I remember when the AIDS epidemic started, some people think that if a man rapes a young girl, he will be cured of AIDS. So sometimes there are myths also that causes all this violence within the society.
All right. Apart from the cultural and traditional forms which you just stated, what are the political and religious impacts of this violence?
Well, take for instance Boko Haram, that believes that the only, pure form and the right form of religion is this strict Islamic religion. They don't want anything Western. And, because they preach that, they destabilize, the society. And obviously, when it comes to the issue of politics, they would prefer that, someone who is from their own belief should be elected. And so, again, in politics, it affects, the political, politically it affects the society. They bring that also in politics. And, the religious impact, because they prefer, this strict form of, Islamic practices, they're doing away with, anything that is not Islamic. Islamic also in their own prescription, because they are Muslims, that they also consider that to be moderate, not as strict as they are. So they try to get rid of, or they kill those Muslims as well, that do not ascribe to their own particular beliefs. So it destabilizes the society politically. Religiously, people tend to shy away. They are not wanting to practice their faith because it does affect them as well.
Are there any economical impacts?
Obviously, there is a lot of economic impact. Like I mentioned earlier, because violence is perpetrated towards women. Let's take, for example, the issue of human trafficking, which is another form of violence that I had not mentioned, earlier on. Because the man is considered to be the sole provider, if a woman is divorced, because let's say she doesn't have children, what does she do? She would often, try and find other means of getting a source of income, right? And because she doesn't have any source of income, remember, the male child is preferred. Some women are sometimes not sent to school. They don't have the education and, the ability to get resources. So obviously, if a woman has like 7 children and, she's sent away from her husband, economically is going to affect her. And then when we look at the other aspect of how the economy is affected, for instance, Boko Haram, they go about destroying, properties. They burn down buildings, they burn down businesses. It impacts, the society, because when you burn down businesses, it affects the overall, income in the country. So there is a big economic impact when violence is perpetrated, against women.
All right, would you mind telling us what NWAVE has done so far to stop these forms of violence?
Well, when NWAVE first started, we started, rallying, just making people aware of what is happening in Nigeria, particularly at that time. And so there was a big awareness. Then we realized, it's not just rallying and making awareness, there are also victims that are affected. For instance, in this village that I talked about, the village of Dogona Hawa, I took a trip to that village because I wanted to go see, and meet with the women. So I met, with some ladies. There's this particular woman that I remember, her name is Mrs. Samuel. Her husband was killed. Indeed, that night, her daughter was also killed. I think she lost about 3 family members. And so I talked with her and asked her what she was doing. Well, she never went to school. She was a trader. Now that they have burned everything, she didn't have money to even feed the rest of the children. There is no husband who was the main source of, of income within the family. So we decided to try and help her, to start business. So NWAVE at that point gave us some money in order to, help her. And then, some of the women visited, we visited victims that were lying in the hospital, that were still sick. And those victims, we tried to provide money, in order to help them to meet their medical bills. So these are some of the things that NWAVE has done. Not only do we go to the victims, one of the things that we try to do also is we go to traditional rulers. I remember we went to Kafanchan when there was a big religious riot. We felt, okay, we need to forge peace between these 2 religious groups. So what NWAVE women did, they collected food items, they collected clothing, and we divided ourselves into 2. A sect went to the imam, the other set went to the pastors, and we delivered those, goods and expressed to them how sorry we felt, what was happening, and that there was need. And mind you, NWAVE also tried to have Muslim and Christian women work together. And that way, the Muslims would also reach out to their Muslim counterpart, and Christians reach out to their counterpart. So, speaking up and as well as meeting the victims' need is what we do. We advocate for the victims and also try to meet their needs. Right now, because of the Boko Haram bombardment in the villages, and farmers are unable to farm. They are afraid to go to the farm because Boko Haram comes over, finds them in the bushes. So there are a lot of displaced people. It is believed that we have over 700,000 displaced people in Nigeria. Some have crossed over to other countries, some have gone to other states, and what NWAVE is doing right now is try to reach out to those refugees that are in Abuja, they are in some in Nasarawa, some in Plateau State. And we go to the camps and try to take clothing, we take food, but we are also trying to rent homes because, the camps are not enough. With so many people, you are unable to house or keep them. So we're trying to, rent houses to have these families settle in.